What is going on, my guys? Today we're going to be listening to Max Kellerman's breakdown analysis of Canelo versus Crawford. We're going to try to debunk Max Kellerman, whatever points he makes. I know a lot of you guys are high on Max. Y'all are really excited he's on the broadcasting team, but let's see what he has to say. Let's see if we can kind of poke at him a bit.
First attribute, best jab.
Crawford.
Best defense.
Crawford has the better jab. Yeah, I'm not mad at it.
Crawford. Nowadays, Crawford. I would say early in the fight, Canelo. And earlier in his career, Canelo. But he hasn't been that kind of fighter in recent years. Although Crawford is also hittable. With any fighter, when you talk about their defense, the question is not, can they be hit with a shot? You take punches. Everyone, the greatest defensive fighters ever get hit. Pernell Whitaker, Willie Pep, Floyd Mayweather, they all get hit. The question is, can you hit them with combinations? And both guys are hard to hit. With the two-piece, hard to hit.
I would disagree with Max Kellerman here. To determine a great defensive fighter, he is right to an extent. Can you hit him with the two-piece, right? That is a big part of it. I'm sorry. But the better way to define a guy's defensive prowess, in my opinion, would be how many times is that guy absorbing a shot he wasn't looking to take, right? So combination's cool. That also plays into my point. But I would say even Golovkin, I don't think Golovkin was a bad defensive fighter because he never took a shot or too many shots he didn't want to take. That is what defense is about, right? And then you have the guys who don't take a lot of shots at all. You have your Floyds, your Shakurs, your Purnells, your Bivels, right? Those are the guys who take very minimal shots, at all. But in terms of who is going to take the least amount of shots they want to take, is going to be Canelo. Canelo is going to only take the shots he feels like is necessary to him winning the fight. He's only going to take the shots he feel like will not change the tide of the fight. Terence Crawford, while yes, he is hard to hit him with the 1-2, I will agree. Terence Crawford, time and time again, has taken shots that changed the tide of fights or could change the tide of a fight if the right opponent was in the ring with him. So I think Canelo personally is the better defensive fighter. That's just me.
So who has the best footwork out of the two?
In terms of cutting off the ring, last fight notwithstanding, Canelo has gotten much better at cutting off the ring. But, early in his career, he had a problem with that and was much more comfortable counterpunching. But overall, I have to say Crawford. If you go down the list and ask me about tactical advantages, most of them are Crawford. What Canelo has is size and, as a result, physical strength and punching power. Canelo also has a great chin. But in terms of, if you want to go skill for skill, especially the recent version of Canelo, who's had to turn into a seek and destroy guy, who had to learn as his career went on to cut off the ring and not just follow guys around. Like Lara, Trout, Floyd, he followed those guys around. He had trouble because he's really a natural counterpuncher who wants you to come to him. But in recent years at super middleweight, he's gotten really good at cutting off the ring. Again, last fight notwithstanding. So as an overall suite of skills, recent vintage, it's been Crawford.
Okay.
But Canelo also is skilled and has a larger skeleton than Crawford. No matter what they weigh, Canelo's the bigger guy.
Yeah. You briefly mentioned Canelo's power.
In terms of footwork, yeah, Canelo obviously cuts the ring off better. Crawford's feet is more dynamic. The angles, the moving backwards, moving laterally. Yeah, Crawford, I think by far has the better feet.
So who, I would assume Canelo has the
You'd have to think, unless Crawford was on a knockout streak until he moved up to junior middleweight and then failed to stop Madrimov. So, and Canelo, though he has not stopped anyone in a while, we've seen he's a real puncher at 68.
As far as speed, who has a better speed?
you would imagine Crawford, given the fact that he is the naturally smaller fighter, and I would assume he could maintain that advantage going into this fight.
Last attribute, ring IQ.
Crawford's definitely the faster fighter. He's a smaller fighter for sure.
They both have sky-high ring IQ.
Before Max answers this question, I don't like the ring IQ question because when you're talking about two fighters that analyze the ring differently, it just, you can't compare. They view the ring differently. They're both trying to operate and initiate offense and evade shots differently. This ring IQ, you can't measure ring IQ with fighters like these two. It had to be somebody different. If it was somebody who fought more of a style of Crawford, then maybe, but not with these two.
If I have to, Crawford. If you ask me again, like, there's a reason that I think Crawford's the best pound for pound fighter in the world, right? Because I think, and Canelo once was. So even though Crawford is biologically older, Canelo has had the longer career. He's been fighting since he's a teenager, and there's been signs recently that maybe he's not the same guy that he used to be. By the way, I know people think Inoue and Usyk are ahead of Crawford. The ring has them rated ahead of Crawford. I don't, because to me, pound for pound is not a fairness issue. It's an issue of just who do you think is better. And the last time I saw Crawford, he moved up yet another division, beat.
If the pound for pound, I go pound for pound off accolades. I don't really care about how you look. If you're able to go 5 division champion and you look really iffy, it doesn't matter. You still went 5 division, right? That's why I like Kenshiro Taraji. Taraji's had a really shaky career, but look at what he's been able to accomplish. He's in my pound for pound as well. In terms of Bud being number 1, he's simply not. It's incorrect to put him number 1. His last fight, if you're going off last performances, look at what he did against Madrimov, a guy who 11 fights into his career, which I thought was a really great fighter, a really good fighter, I'd say. He struggled. He kind of underperformed. Let's be honest. He underperformed in that fight. This was a fight in the buildup. Guys are telling me, Jerry, this is bad. This is a cherry pick. This is just, no, this fight's not going 6 rounds. And Crawford struggled. So going off recent performances or just how they've looked, especially when you take into account Crawford's activity, Naoya Inoue stopping Cardenas, stopping Kim, stopping who was it? But TJ Doheny, stopping Luis Neri, stopping Marlon Tapales, and stopping Stephen Fulton. Also, while being still undisputed in his 4th division, is a bit more impressive than Crawford's last fight, even his last 2. You know, he's only had 2 fights since 2023, and even Usyk going undisputed, 2-time undisputed, and beating Tyson Fury. There's no way you can have Crawford over those 2, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm going on a little rant here, but that's me.
At the time, the guy I thought was the best fighter in the division. Turns out he wasn't, but I thought he was at the time. And before that, had just annihilated Errol Spence. So if you look at all the boxes, I'm going to check Crawford for most of them, if not all of them. But the reason Canelo is favored is because Canelo does a lot of things at a very high level, and he's a naturally bigger guy.
So obviously this fight hasn't happened yet, but like, where would you rank this fight out of your top 3 to 5 of all the boxing fights you've called, you've experienced, you've watched? Just the
in terms of the magnitude of the
magnitude,
fight?
Yeah.
I mean, of the fights that I've called ringside, it might turn out to be number 1. I've done Pacquiao fights, I've done Mayweather fights, I've done Anthony Joshua against Klitschko. Those are big fights, but this will, listen, because of Netflix, this will be the most watched fight, championship fight, in almost 50 years.
I think that's all Max Kellerman has. I think that's all the points he has on the actual breakdown of the fight. Let me make sure.
This is going to do multiples of that. So, so when you look at it from like a commercial point of view, it'll easily. In every other sport, there's a ball that's the surrogate for the will, right? Oh, you know, Barry Bonds can't hit Roger Clemens' fastball. Roger Clemens has imposed his will metaphorically on Barry Bonds, right? Agassi, you can't return Sampras's serve. I'm thinking like the greatest of all time. A metaphor. But if Lennox Lewis hits Mike Tyson with a right hand, and Mike Tyson goes down, Mike Tyson's brain tells his legs, get up, and his legs can't do it. He has literally been separated from his own will. That's a physical imposition of will on another. More compelling. So then you say, well, why isn't boxing more popular right now?
Okay, so I think that's all he has to say. I agree with Max in most of his points on like the defensive prowess of the two. I think Canelo, I made a video about it on TikTok. While Canelo is the less flashy defensive fighter, I think Canelo is the better defensive fighter. I think the CompuBox numbers, you guys can go look at the CompuBox numbers. Even the CompuBox numbers would back that. Canelo, he's not taking a lot of shots. He's unwilling to take. I feel like Crawford is at times. Crawford is also a bit more chaotic. When it's time to finish a fight, he is a bit more chaotic. I get the Errol Spence fight was, it was a great performance and he was really in control. But most of his fights, they kind of break down and they crumble apart and they become chaotic and he happens to be on top in the end. But like I said, I think Canelo has the better defensive prowess. I would say shame on the reporter. Whoever journalist, whoever asked Max these questions, they were obviously biased towards Crawford, right? We didn't speak on size, we didn't speak on power, we didn't speak on resume, we didn't speak on pressure, we didn't speak on counter punching, which still might be Crawford, but even volume, output, stamina, which could all be in Crawford's favor. I'm not saying just bring up categories Canelo wins in, but I feel like there were strictly categories that were brought up, like, yes, Crawford has the better feet, he's the smaller guy. Yes, Crawford's the faster guy, he's the smaller guy. Yes, Crawford has the better jab, he's the longer guy. Right? Not saying the longer guy's gonna have the better jab, but kind of biased, kind of skewed in Crawford's favor. But I thought me and Max could have a little conversation, a one-sided, one-way conversation here. Not much for me to disagree with the guy. This video will be a lot shorter than I thought it would be. I thought we would have something to kind of talk about, but hope you guys did enjoy this video. Hope to see you guys in the next one. I hope to see you guys in the next Late Stoppage Podcast episode. Make sure you guys go watch episode 2 of the Late Stoppage Podcast. I appreciate all the support.